Hello, everyone. We're back for another episode of Whole Life Freedom and tuning in to our body, soul, and spirit, helping us get breakthrough so that we can go from surviving, struggling, and into thriving and who you're made to be in every area of your life. But we're really looking at how it gets stored in your mind, your heart, your body, and activating that with various tools. My name is Kirsten Larson, and I'm a wholeness coach. And I look at these areas through a lens of wanting to bring in God into the picture, but also bringing in our physical body, our mind, and our thoughts, and learning how they all actually integrate. I experienced years of trying to work through trauma, working through pain, working through physical health issues, and all trying to do it from individual modalities. And it was a very long journey that kept coming back for me to this answer of what if it's not just one piece, but it's really the way that we're created is an integrated person, whole person, that we have emotions in our body, we have sickness in our body, we have the capacity for health and a capacity for our bodies to heal when in the right environment. Our thoughts produce different emotions going into our body produces different thoughts going into our brain. We are all integrated. We have the power and the presence of our spirit and God in the midst of it, who is giving us the power to work with how He has created us. We have a few different modalities that we can use to really help integrate this process, to bring healing in this process. And those things, how when you learn how to walk that out, learn how to listen to those different parts of you, rather than try to shove them forward and move them through out of what you're in, but you have compassion for where you're at, you listen with curiosity, and you move forward. There is a lot of healing available, and there's a lot of freedom available for you. And just think about for a minute what your life could be like if you didn't experience those hindrances. You're not meant to walk with those. You're not meant to live with those. You're not meant to walk with a limp for the rest of your life. But I want to talk about these different areas ongoing. So I hope you enjoy them. We look at a few different topics, but through this lens of wholeness. So today I wanted to continue on this journey. The last video that I did was on this idea of abundance, and not necessarily financial abundance, but living from a place of abundance. Just like we can live from a place of rest, we can also live from a place of abundance. And I talked about how there's two things that kind of keep us from that space, and one of them being lack and one of them being limitation. So living without or experiencing that lack feeling or sensation or experience, or experiencing a limit or a barrier to moving forward. And these are things that I have experienced, I have seen countless times, just over and over again, and I wanted to just speak to it. It is a little bit different, again, than the normal pieces of information or sharing topics that I come across, but they've just been burning in my heart to share and to look at from a different angle. And so today I wanted to take one of those and take lack. And in the next one, we're going to look at limitation a little more specifically. Just as I'm preparing for this workshop that I'm doing, you're invited to come join it, whether live or catching the replay. wholelifefreedom.com/abundance. We're going to be looking at breaking free and actually getting our hands dirty, so to speak, in getting those things free, getting those things out of our system, and learning tools to empower you to really do that. This is something that I've personally experienced a lot of breakthrough in, and have helped many, many people experience that same breakthrough, because we want to really see that happen. So how do we begin to recognize lack in our life? As I mentioned in the last video, I often would not recognize it until I did. And I think that's the case for many people. Some of us are aware. I'm living from a lack of this. I feel this lack. I can experience it. I think in terms of lack. But many people I've found don't recognize it until all of a sudden they do. So some questions to even ask is, do you often feel tired or even anxious? Anxiety can come from a place of like, I don't have enough. Or maybe you feel disconnected. You don't feel connected to that continual source, that continual flow. Maybe you feel yourself striving, like you never have enough. And remember, you can have that striving come in when maybe you don't have enough energy. Maybe you don't have enough approval from other people. Maybe you're not experiencing enough love or peace, or you're not experiencing enough financially, so you feel like you have to work really hard. I know years ago I really dealt with that a lot, where I would just work so hard, and it wasn't even really for me about finances as it was about gaining that approval. And it wasn't something I was cognitively doing. It wasn't in the forefront of my brain. It was deeper down in my being. It was like I felt like I had to work and really, really hard. Otherwise, I wouldn't be seen. And again, I wouldn't have put words on it at that time. In the middle of it, I just knew I had this engine driving me that had to work really hard. And that eventually led to intense burnout, which, well, we'll talk about another time. But so if you're experiencing some of those things, in the last video, I also mentioned, so lack can present itself in a couple of different ways. In one way, it can present itself from just kind of always like holding things close, because you might be feeling like I don't have enough, so I don't want to expand, because I just don't have enough. So I might not spend, or I might not go out, or I might not do something that even my heart is calling me into. And so I kind of hold things close. Another representation of it, and another presentation that I see very, very regularly, is overdoing it in another area. So maybe you feel like you're not enough, so you feel like lack in identity and self understanding of who you are, and so you overspend on something in your life. Maybe you're on Amazon all the time. We have those Prime days and they're exciting, and you feel this need to kind of fill that, but you don't know what you're filling. A lot of times lack runs deep under the surface, and it's not always evident in our mind, but it's evident in how we present ourselves. Like, I'm either holding back or I'm overdoing it in an area to fulfill that space inside. Some other like areas that it presents itself that I think are really interesting, that I've come across just years and years of working with people and kind of coming to see these themes. Physical lack. Maybe you feel this kind of fatigue or burnout or tension. Like I said, or that overeating or over compulsive behavior is often because of just that sense of lack in that area. Emotional lack. Sometimes it's like emptiness or just loneliness, or just this feeling like you're never enough. And some of these things I want to just speak to for a moment. It's not your fault. And I'm going to share about that in a second. A lot of times when you hear these things, you go, oh, something's wrong with me. But these things have come across and come into your life for a reason, usually because of something that happened when you were young. So as an adult, those things are running below the surface, like a well underneath the ground. And we don't often realize that we're living from that place. Mental lack, or just this place of thoughts of lack, is maybe we overthink, or maybe we have this anxiety or this kind of tendency to kind of think in terms of scarcity, or I don't have enough, or there's not enough for me. A lot of times we even talk about that as being like an orphan spirit or an orphan mentality of like, I don't have enough. And so that can show up in our thought process a lot. Spiritual lack, maybe you feel distant from God, or like you're not getting enough from him, or unable to trust his provision or his presence, or even just feeling disconnected from the incredible, profound love that he has for you. And so that can even end up feeling like I feel, frustrated or upset about those kind of things, and just when I was doing my devotional time this morning, I was in 2 Peter and being reminded of this, of verse 1, chapter 1, verse 3, that says his divine power has given us everything that we need for life and godliness. God has given you everything that you need. It's all available and accessible right now. We know John 10:10, I've come that you would have life abundantly. And I know that many don't feel like they're living an abundant life. They don't feel like they're living in that full space, in that full capacity. I remember what that feels like, and to feel it the other day when I was driving in my car, I realized, wow, I feel this abundant flow. Even if I don't see it with my eyes in every area, I can feel like as I look at the lack in that area, I still feel an abundant flow, and there's abundant possibility in that area. And that took years of healing, and it took some of these understandings that I'm going to share with you today, is that we can actually transform how we experience something irregardless of what we see with our eyes. Maybe you see lack in your finances, or in your health, or in your relationships, or in your calling, or in a different area of your life. And what you see with your natural eyes, what you see before you, doesn't have to be your internal experience. And that's what we really want to talk about, is the way that your physical body responds, and the way that your emotional world responds, or the way that your mind is able to see it, and that we can actually bring all of those into a place of this peaceful awareness of living from rest, because we know there's an abundant supply of all that we need at all times, because God is that good. But sometimes when all we can see is lack, and all we experience is lack, it again multiplies that, because what we focus on grows, because our brain even is wired that way. Our body is wired that way. What we focus on goes. Where our attention goes, energy flows. I love kind of throwing out those fun little rhymes and rhythms, but the idea is that your brain is looking for evidence to prove what it believes. And so part of what we want to begin doing is transforming what we believe. But we don't just do that just through our brain. Yes, we need to renew our mind, but we also need to renew our physical, emotional experience, so that we can connect with all that God has for us. So if we have a experience, and it attaches to all these different moments in our life of evidence that I am living in lack, then our brain is going to continue to look for how we live from lack, and how there isn't supply in that area of our life. Maybe there isn't supply of physical health in our life. Maybe there isn't a supply of emotional health in our life, or finances, or relationships, or what have you. And so then our brain is going to continue to look for that evidence. So what we want to do is retrain our brain, retrain the physical, emotional responses of our body, and invite the presence of God to begin to teach us and show us what the truth is, right? Jesus says that you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. But sometimes we just might know it right on the forefront of our brain, and it doesn't translate into our entire being. So that's what I want to share with you, that this is how we want to actually build transformation, is from a whole person perspective. When you think about that area, I want you to just look at each of these areas. Let's just look at physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Look at your finances, your relationship, your calling. Look at those areas, and in any of them, Do you feel or experience lack? And remember, we're not looking at the actual expression of it yet. Okay, that comes later, but we want to look at your experience of how are you actually experiencing that world? If you had $0 in your bank account, do you still feel like you lack in that area? Or do you know that you have endless possibilities? I want to bring this in. You've probably heard this before, but they say that many people who win the lottery, if they started from a position of poverty or a poverty mentality or a lack mentality, they actually end up going further into debt after winning the lottery than they were before. So they win all these millions of dollars, but because their internal world wasn't in alignment with that, they end up spending it and overspending it and going below where they originally started. On the flip side, you take millionaires and billionaires who, it's not about money, but it's an internal world and understanding. They have an understanding, they have an expanded sense of self on the inside when it comes to money. And maybe they have issues in other areas of their life, but they look at it, and there are many millionaires, billionaires who have lost everything and have quickly, easily regained and rebuilt very quickly back to that same space, because that's what their internal wiring was kind of aligned with. And we can say that same thing for physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, in each of those dynamics. And so it's really, like I said, it's not about what you have on the outside. A millionaire on the outside can lose everything and rebuild it very quickly. Now, the same person who is living in poverty has the same resources and components and capacity that the other person did, but doesn't have the same internal framework and wiring to say, I can expand quickly, easily, without effort. And so I want to just let's look at that for a second. Where do you feel that at? When you break through lack, what that does for us. What happens when we begin to break through lack? Why is it so important? Well, think about it. Physically, you begin to have more energy. You begin to feel lighter physically. You begin to feel less tension in your body. Oh, I love that feeling when I just know I have this spaciousness on the inside and I feel light. Emotionally, you begin to experience peace because you know that whatever you're seeing on the outside is possible to expand, to fill. You have limitless, endless possibilities. You experience emotionally a sense of fulfillment because you're no longer feeling that sense of lack on the inside. Mentally, you get this release from striving. You get to live it out in peace. You get to feel actually open to creative ideas, because when you feel like there's an abundance of possibility, all of a sudden when there's a problem, your mind doesn't see it from a sense of lack or as a problem, but your mind suddenly is peace to look at it and say, oh, I have creative solutions living inside of me. There's a creative solution for that problem. Now, isn't that amazing? I love that experience. I love that feeling. Now, I've experienced both, where I see the problem and that's all I see. And I've also seen the problem from the other side and been like, okay, there's got to be a solution to this. I know there is. I'm not seeing it right now, but I'm going to see it. And pretty soon, because I was open to that experience, I was open to seeing the solution, pretty soon I'm able to hear from God. I'm able to experience Him. So that brings us to, what does that do for us spiritually? Well, when we know that we have a good, loving, kind God, we can trust Him in every experience. We can trust His abundance. We can trust His limitlessness, His infinite possibilities, the beauty of His love. We can trust His provision. We can rest in Him. I love how Hebrews 4 says, strive to enter into God's rest. Well, how can we rest in Him if we always feel like we are living from a place of lack? Well, when we shift out of lack, we can actually begin to experience that place of rest, that place of God, what are you going to do in this moment? God, I know that you have limitless possibilities here in this moment, and we get to experience that and see that. Now, I've seen that over and over again, physical health, emotional health, mental health, and integrating that in is such a beautiful place to be. So I want to round out here is what do we do and how do we actually shift out of that lack? Well, one tool, of course, that we know is just continually renewing our mind. Romans 12:2 says that we are actually transformed. The word is transfigured through the renewing of our mind. So we want to, number one, just become aware of the thoughts that we have in each area of our life. Is there an area of our life that we're experiencing or thinking in terms of lack? And how is it presenting itself? And then begin to allow God to speak the truth into that. Maybe you sit and journal and receive his truth into that area. Maybe you open the Bible, you read it, and you experience his truth in that area. And then you declare it, you read it and memorize it, and you see yourself experiencing it. Renewing your mind has to be in a way of integrating all of your senses. You've got to physically feel it. You've got to emotionally engage with it. You've got to visually see it. You've got to declare it. You got to hear those words and engage with it in all of your senses for it to really renew and engage in that part. So just memorizing something doesn't usually create change. You want to actually bring it in. One thing that I love integrating with that process is breath work. Now, just slowing your breath begins to even connect you with the idea that there's more air, there's enough air to breathe. I can slow my entire nervous system down and begin just focusing on receiving all that I need. When we still down, it calms the nervous system, it releases stress, and it actually aligns us with this element of there's enough time, I am enough, there's enough of all that I need in every area, and we get to slow down. So the breathing method that I enjoy for this sake is just slowing your breathing down, bringing it all the way into your diaphragm, and just releasing it nice and slow, and seeing if you can get into a really slow, peaceful rhythm. Even just 5 minutes a day of doing that is going to rewire your brain, your heart, your nervous system, and start to create that sense of peace and stillness in your body. And so, of course, you know that I love also integrating emotional freedom techniques. So EFT, tapping, and what that begins to do is it begins to give you the freedom to actually express the different areas of lack that you're experiencing. And so you want to get as specific as possible when you tap on these things. It helps release it out of your emotional body. It releases it out of your organs. It helps release those stuck places from your system. You can begin tapping on those and declaring, I'm feeling lack. As we do tapping, we always want to start actually in the negative. And it's actually the one place that it's just really freeing to tap and talk or process those experiences. I don't feel like enough. I feel like I don't have enough in this area. And you can just talk about it, release it, and it actually begins letting that sense come out of the organs of your body, your nervous system, your cells of your body, your emotional sense, rewires your nervous system, starts to repattern your brain. And then once you can feel that shift happen, then you can begin tapping in all those positive things that you just received from declaring, receiving in prayer and in the word and in prophetic words, and letting them receive it while doing the tapping is going to integrate that body part. It's a somatic experience. It's going to integrate your brain. It's going to integrate your spirit as you pray while you do it. And it's a very powerful experience. So these are few of the things that we're going to actually do tangible exercises in my upcoming workshop Go check it out, wholelifefreedom.com/abundance. Whether you join us live or on the replay, I would love to see you. It's going to be really fun, really powerful. We're going to actually do the exercises, and you're going to begin to experience freedom in the workshop, and you can continue to refer back to it. These are things that I do regularly, do them with all my clients and coaching clients, and get to see that breakthrough. I want to see you step into that place of freedom. So I want to just pray a blessing over you. God, I just thank you that you truly have, out of 2 Peter 1:3, given us everything we need for this life. God, there is so much more available and accessible to us than our minds can even imagine. Ephesians 3:20, that he will outdo all that you can ask or imagine. And so, Lord, we just pray right now that you would begin to break off that sense of lack, that you would break it out of the cells of our body, the experiences from when we were young and experienced lack, from the different experiences through our life, Lord, that any mindsets that you would begin rewiring them, Lord, any places in our nervous system, any places in our heart and our emotions, any places in our spirit where we experience that feeling or that experience of lack, would you begin rewiring it, releasing it? And Lord, I just release just a connection to your limitless nature, the God of endless possibilities. God, that your love would wrap around each person listening to this. They would experience an incredible connection to the perfect love of the Father, just as your perfect love casts out any fear of lack, that it would just cleanse like a beautiful waterfall, just washing over in your love and in your presence. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys, until next time, see you soon.